Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Any standards a remarkable campaign, but it leaves Labour many seats short of actually being able to put their policies into practice. What more can Jeremy Corbyn do to turn the effervescent politics of protest into the hard realities of power? He joins me now. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr Corbyn. You're looking very chipper, if I may say so.
Well, it's a nice Sunday morning.
Nice
Sunday.
Sunday.
And what better place to spend it than with you?
That's very kind of you to say so. Now, you say in your interview in the Sunday Mirror today that you can be Prime Minister very shortly, and that you still expect to put down a Labour programme in the House of Commons. I just don't understand how that can happen, given the numbers.
Look, we have a chaotic situation with a government that sought re-election on the basis of wanting a bigger mandate and a bigger majority to bring stability to British politics. And what have we got? A minority government relying on the DUP to try and get business through the House of Commons when they have no agreed position, as far as I can work out, on most issues. It seems to me chaotic. And I think we are quite ready and able to put forward a serious programme which obviously has massive support in this country. Remember, this election campaign turned around a great deal on the basis of an awful lot of people rejecting the politics of fear and instead embracing the politics of hope that we can challenge austerity and we can actually start sharing the wealth out in this country a bit better.
But in terms of raw, brute numbers and the way the system works, they got more votes and they got more seats than you did. And if they can form a coalition or some kind of government, then they have the right to do that. And it's very hard to see how, with your numbers, you can stop them.
They are trying to form a government at the moment. I've no idea what they're going to put into the Queen's speech. No idea what their stance is going to be on a legislative programme. I'm very clear what our stance is. We fought this election campaign on a jobs-first Brexit. We fought this election campaign to oppose austerity. We fought this election campaign to start bringing fairness and justice, security for old people and real hope for young people. Surely the result has shown something very remarkable in British politics. Young people became engaged. Older people joined in that engagement. We had an incredible process here. There's something actually quite historic happened during
it. It was an extraordinary campaign, but nonetheless, at the end of it, you lost the election. You accept that?
We didn't win the election.
OK, you didn't win it.
As you know, I'm a totally effervescent, totally optimistic person. We didn't win the election, but we had an incredibly good result, particularly, if I may say so, given the way that so many of our incredibly experienced commentators wrote us off a month ago.
So I'm going to return one more time
you're welcome to
the numbers, the parliamentary numbers and so forth. You're going to put down, we read, an alternative Queen's speech. Is that true?
We're going to put down a substantial amendment to the Queen's speech which will contain within it the main points of our manifesto. And so we'll invite the House to consider all the issues we've put forward, which I've mentioned, jobs first Brexit, mentioned the issues of young people and of austerity, and of as many other things.
What are you going to be saying about Brexit?
Jobs first Brexit, and negotiate that as quickly as possible, but also to guarantee the rights of European Union nationals to remain in Britain. I think that will
do that immediately.
Immediately. Well, we already did that straight after the referendum last year on a, albeit non-binding, House of Commons majority vote, where the Conservatives, for the most part, abstained, but bizarrely, Boris Johnson supported the Labour vote on that occasion.
Keir Starmer, your European spokesman, said that it was an open question as to whether you would actually stay inside the single market and the customs union or leave it. Do you have any clear position about that?
Well, the position we have is that fundamentally it's protecting jobs and industry in Britain and maintaining that trading relationship. I've said this many times.
Absolutely. So my question is, could you stay inside the single market and the customs union?
Well, the single market is a requirement of EU membership, and since we won't be EU members, there will have to be an arrangement made. So so
you are clear, we are leaving the EU?
Absolutely. Where I frame it is that we want a tariff-free access to the European market. We also want to maintain very important university and research collaboration in Europe, and there's a whole host of European agencies, Euratom, security, environment, in which we obviously wish to be part of. And I tell you this, we will absolutely remain part of the European Convention on Human Rights and the European Court of Human Rights. We are not walking away from those vital post-war agreements that were made.
Do you intend to support the government on the so-called Great Repeal Bill?
The Great Repeal Bill, I suspect, has probably now become history. I suspect we'll have something different coming in a couple of weeks' time. We will put forward a position which we negotiate tariff-free access to the European market and legislate after that.
You could come quite close to dominating the House of Commons in numbers terms as well if you could persuade Sinn Féin to take their seat. Has it crossed your mind that they perhaps owe you a little bit? You could have a conversation with them and persuade them to come to Westminster.
I fully understand the many, many aspects of Irish history, and I find Irish history absolutely fascinating. And I have followed it, as you know, for a very long time, and I represent a constituency that has a huge Irish community within it. I don't see any possibility of Sinn Féin taking their seats.
No, none at all. Okay.
Well, unless you know something I don't know.
I don't. I'm asking you. But Ruth Davidson, who did very well for the Conservatives in Scotland, has opened up the idea of the main parties sitting down together and agreeing a joint position on Brexit. Is that something you would be open to?
Well, I don't think there is a joint position, because Theresa May and the Conservatives have said all along that they will go and have a talk to Europe. If they don't agree, then they're going to set up some kind of Singapore-style low-tax haven on the shores of Europe. Well, that's not on our agenda at all. We're putting forward a very clear view on the kind of relationship we want with Europe in the future. Where I do agree with Ruth Davidson, if I may say, where I do agree with Ruth Davidson, if I may say so, is that we have to challenge the social conservatism of the DUP and what price they are going to extract from Theresa May and the Conservatives in order to continue to support. They say there's no agreement. Well, the DUP have a very specific view on gay marriage, on women's rights, on a whole lot of things. They're not social liberals, you know.
They also have a very specific view about things like the winter fuel payments and some of the welfare issues, where they're on your side rather than the Conservative side. So we'll wait to see what happens. Presumably you would welcome the Conservatives not implementing those parts of the manifesto.
I've been all through this election campaign, and I've been asked 100 times the question, have we done deals with anybody? No. Are we forming a coalition? No. Will we put our programme to Parliament? Yes. And that is what we will do. That's why we fought the election. That's why we had the biggest increase in Labour support at any election since 1945. There's something quite remarkable happened there.
Do you think we may be facing another election this year?
I think it's quite possible. It's quite possible there'll be an election later this year or early next year, and that might be a good thing, because we cannot go on with a period of great instability. We have a programme, we have the support, and we are ready to fight another election campaign as soon as may be, because we want to be able to serve the people of this country on the agenda we put forward, which is transformative and has gained amazing levels of support, because people say, hang on, why are my children worse off than we are? Why are my grandchildren going to be worse off than we are? It's about, this election wasn't just about Brexit. There was something very different about it. It was challenging an economic consensus which has impoverished so many people.
It certainly was, and there is now a big choice, in a sense, ahead of you, a strategic choice about how you lead the Labour Party going forward, because you now need to make one further big jump to actually achieve a parliamentary majority and govern as the Labour Party. On the one hand, you could say, I'm going to double down on what I've achieved so far. The momentum movement, getting all those younger voters out, giving them a more left-of-centre manifesto, that all worked brilliantly for me, and that's how I'm going to carry on with the same sort of people around me as before. Or you could say, on this occasion, I want to open generously out to those people who gave me such a horrible time over the last 2 years, all those Blairites and Brownites who've been carping in the wings and are now eating humble pie all over the airwaves and saying how brilliant you are. Would you bring those kind of people back in? Yvette Cooper and all the rest of it. Are they welcomed back in the Labour Party?
I'm the most generous person in the world.
So the answer is yes.
Listen,
Chuka Ramuna, Yvette Cooper, they can come back in?
I'm not going to appoint a shadow cabinet on your programme if it's all right with you, you know.
I'm slightly disappointed.
I know you're disappointed, but we'll, you know, I'm sure we can come to an accommodation about this. Yes, of course we're going to reach out. Listen, I always have. Ever since I became leader, I've reached out, and there's been one or two difficulties at times in the Parliamentary Labour Party, but let's put that behind us. The issue is, the party came together around a brilliant manifesto, came together and fought this election, and came together for a result that you and nobody else ever expected. Out there, a lot of people said, hang on a minute, you are for the first time offering a real choice in British politics, and do you know what? It's infectious.
So what is the next stage of all of this? Because if you bring more people back in, you're going to, as it were, heal the Labour Party wounds and bring the Labour Party back together again after this election result. You're expecting an election quite soon. Is the Labour Party ready for an election again this year? It's a very expensive process.
Listen, we don't have any big donors. We don't have any billionaires. We raised millions of pounds from an average donation of £22. Ordinary people without much money saw in us something that was transformative, different, and a real offer in society. We're ready anytime.
Now, you've probably heard already Conservatives on this programme saying the one thing we really fear is an early election because Jeremy Corbyn will become Prime Minister if we're not very, very careful. What's your message to Theresa May now?
Well, she fought the election on the basis she wanted a personal mandate. She said in terms in Parliament, vote for me. I never said that. I've said vote Labour. And she said she needed that mandate in order to negotiate Brexit. Well, what happened? She lost seats. She's now in a minority government. She's relying on the DUP, which barely gives her a majority vote in the House of Commons in order to survive. Listen, is it credible that with all the issues facing our country, all the issues of inequality and justice and the Brexit talks and everything else, that you have a government that cannot actually gain a majority in the House of Commons except by doing a deal with a very socially conservative DUP? Come on, we need something more responsible than that.
Is Jeremy Corbyn in this for the long term?
Look at me. I've got youth on my side.
Jeremy Corbyn, thanks very much indeed for talking to.
Now, Jeremy Corbyn may have lost the election, but he's clearly cock-a-hoop with the big increase in Labour's share of the vote and, of course, the extra number of Labour MPs in Parliament. On Friday, he called on Theresa May to resign and said he was ready to govern the country as a minority Labour government. Speaking this morning, the Labour leader said he thought there could be another election, well, in quite the near future.
I think it's quite possible there'll be an election later this year or early next year, and that might be a good thing because we cannot go on with a period of great instability. We have a programme, we have the support, and we are ready to fight another election campaign as soon as may be because we want to be able to serve the people of this country on the agenda we put forward, which is transformative and has gained amazing levels of support. Because people say, hang on, why are my children worse off than we are? Why are my grandchildren going to be worse off than we are? It's about, this election wasn't just about Brexit. There was something very different about it. It was challenging an economic consensus which has impoverished so many people.
That was the Labour leader talking earlier this morning. We're joined now by the Shadow Health Secretary, John Ashworth. Welcome to the programme. A lot of Labour people have been behaving as if you won this election. Can I just point out to you that you've now lost 3 elections in a row?
Yes, you can point that out, but we've got 40% of the vote, and undoubtedly momentum is with us, and momentum is important in politics.
Is that with a capital M or a lowercase m?
A lower M, a lower M.
I thought that might be in your case. So momentum were with you and helped.
Yeah,
it looks like they got the young vote out, and that's why you did better than expected.
Well, the young vote certainly came out for Labour. I would also say I found in my own part of the world Tory voters switching to Labour over things like the dementia tax. But I also think people both from UKIP and people who worked in the public sector voted heavily for Labour because we were suggesting investment in the NHS, investment in schools, and I think one of the big lessons of this election is that people are fed up to the back teeth of cuts to public services and the austerity agenda in public services.
So it was a good manifesto?
Yeah.
You were happy with it?
Yeah, I was happy with it. I was part of putting it together.
You would be happy to fight another election on that same manifesto?
No, it certainly would. I've seen my majority in Leicester South increase substantially. And I put together the health section of that manifesto, which called for more investment in the NHS, gave our nurses and midwives and everyone who works in the NHS a fair pay rise. I'm very happy with that manifesto.
And yet, you had this manifesto that you were very happy with. You were up against a Prime Minister who wanted to fight a personality-led presidential campaign. It then turned out that the British people didn't think she had much personality and wasn't presidential in nature. You had momentum, and you ended up winning no more seats than Gordon Brown did in the disastrous election of 2010.
Given where we were 7 or 8 weeks ago, when we all thought, I mean, I looked at those opinion polls and thought, crikey, this is could not be a good result for Labour potentially. Lots of people thought it was going to be a landslide Tory victory. Theresa May thought she was going to have a landslide Tory victory. That's why she put her party first and not the national interest first in going for this snap election. And undoubtedly, this election campaign changed things. I think the key moment of the election was the manifesto week, when the Labour Party put together proposed policies to the country which excited many people, and the Tory Party came forward with the dementia tax, getting rid of the free school meals, getting rid of the winter fuel payment. I think that was a turning point in the election.
But what does Mr. Corbyn do now? What would you like him to do now? I mean, when I spoke to Ken Livingstone on Friday, he said we did so well in a socialist manifesto. We need more of this. We need more socialism, and we'll do even better. Is that the lesson Mr. Corbyn will take, or will he try to reach out more to the centre of the party? Now that his position is unassailable, does he try to reach out beyond his own group?
Well, I think there's broad unity now across the party, and I think the whole party will come together to take on the Conservatives in Parliament. The Conservatives have now got a huge problem in Parliament. They can only offer weak and unstable government, if you don't mind me poking fun at her campaign slogan. Because, look, what she is trying to do is cobble together this sort of coalition or supply and confidence agreement with the DUP. That means all the decisions in Parliament will be taken on a case-by-case basis. And the key thing is this: it isn't just the votes on the floor of the House. All the committees, all the statutory instruments, and there's going to be thousands of statutory instruments because of Brexit, will rely on the support of the DUP. She will not be able to guarantee that she can get her programme through. We're likely to see the government collapse, or we'll probably have what we call a zombie parliament, where we're not actually debating and voting on legislation because she knows she can't get it through.
But if that's the case, even if she manages to put a deal together with the DUP and it gets off the ground but runs into the kind of difficulties that you quite rightly say are possible, and she can't continue, should Mr. Corbyn try to form a minority government?
I think we should try to form a minority government. I think we should try to put our programme to the House of Commons, our programme of getting rid of tuition fees, investing in the NHS, and I think we should ask and challenge the other parties to support us. But I'm anticipating your next question, I suspect, which is what happens if that doesn't work? Well, then we are probably heading to another general election at some point. I certainly cannot see Theresa May surviving as the Prime Minister for the rest of this Parliament. I can't see her surviving for another 5 days, to be frank, but who knows?
So it's likely, you think, that if Mrs. May can't make this work, I mean, she may start to make it work, but as time goes on it becomes more difficult, that Labour could try to form a minority government, but given that the electoral or the parliamentary arithmetic is not great for her, it's much, much worse for you with only 261 MPs, that may not work.
It may not work, but I think we have a responsibility to try, and I think we have a responsibility to challenge the other parties, like the Liberals and the SNP and the Irish parties and even the Tories, to challenge them to support us on our policies of investing in the NHS, not cutting the NHS, investing in childcare, not cutting childcare. So that is a challenge for us. But if the Conservatives cannot form a government, then we would have to take up that responsibility.
Mr. McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, said to me during the campaign that there would be no deals.
Well, you don't have to have deals.
So it's a take it or leave it basis.
You don't have to have deals.
Because, you know, minority, as I said to him, we've all seen Borgen, the Danish television series. Minority governments, even coalitions, they require deals. You can't just say to other parties, here it is, take it or leave it. You have to give them something.
Yes, but when you have a minority government challenging colleagues in the House on the other side to support you, everything is transparent. What we don't know at the moment is what the Conservatives are offering the DUP.
No.
My voters in Leicester South were not invited to make a judgment on the DUP manifesto, and yet we could have a Conservative government propped up for the time being by the DUP, even though that will have a huge impact on the peace process and trying to get the Snob executive up and running again. So I think it's a different arrangement.
But a minority Labour government, in the way you're talking about it, wouldn't necessarily rule out getting some support from the DUP. You might need it.
Well, if they vote for us and vote for our legislation in the House of Commons, everybody will see it because it'll be transparent. They'll see it in the way they vote.
It does sound, listening to you, that we are in for a period of uncertainty and instability in British politics. That is the outcome of this election. And usually when that happens, it does lead to a second election quite quickly.
Well, it could lead to a second election. I completely concede that. And it is ironic, because given the Tories promised us strong and stable government, and the chaos that she warned of is actually chaos in the Tory party. But also look at the number of seats that are in play at the next election now.
Because it's a Labour-Tory standoff.
It'll be a Labour-Tory standoff. And there's a whole range of seats now with Tory majorities of a few hundred, which Labour is targeting and going for. Seats which based on the 2015 result, we perhaps didn't think we could win. And another key thing is Scotland is in play for Labour again, and it's actually the Scottish MPs which are sustaining Theresa May in government at the moment. And the message in Scotland will be, if you want a Labour government, vote Labour. That's very important for us.
Bet you never thought you'd say that it's Scottish Conservative MPs sustaining
indeed.
a Tory government, but we'll need to leave it there. We are in strange political times.
I've been